Welcome to Negro Please. Like all things Negro, we are late again. I like to say we on CPT time, but we really on Quan time.
We can't break the cycle
people time.
of CP time.
Oh, man. How you guys doing today? I am Dallas Scott. That's Hollywood Huff. You know Quan, the producer. And we have a guest today, White Boy Tom. I'm just going to use it. You said it, so we're going to go with this. White Boy Tom. Tom is our drug dealer. We'll explain more about that in just a little bit. Today's show is going to be mostly about weed. But there are a couple things that I want to talk about real quick, just because they annoy me. Let's start with Juicy Smollett.
Juicy Smollett.
As your boy Dave Chappelle calls him. So Juicy's suing the Chicago Police Department for malicious prosecution. This is one of those times in your life where you should just sit down and shut up. Like, yeah. Oh, did I say it? He pretended to be assaulted by white people with MAGA hats on it. And we find out later that it's not white people with MAGA hats. It's his personal trainers. He wrote them a check. Bro, you got off.
I try.
Don't piss off the Chicago Police Department. God. Like, you're just asking yourself for them to be watching you and waiting for you to do something stupid again.
Yeah. I tried so hard to give him the benefit of the doubt and not jump on the train either side, you know, defending him or attacking him for so long. But the more it went on, like, and then I don't trust police at all. So I didn't even, when they came out and was like, oh, he's lying. It's like, oh, shut up. Y'all think everybody lying. You know, I didn't even take their side. But yeah, the more he talked, the more I was just like, this makes no sense.
Right.
Why are you going to Subway at like 2 a.m. and it's minus 20 degrees outside and you walking?
What Subway is open at 2 o'clock in the morning?
Chicago.
That's not in a casino in Vegas. Really?
I just, and see, it's things like that. Like, I overlook that because I live in Vegas and I think like, I've gone to Subway at 2 a.m. Like, right. But then you think about it and you realize, oh yeah, he's in Chicago.
Right.
Oh yeah, it wasn't 60 degrees. It was minus 20. And he's black. Like, not
even that.
Nobody want to put long at
Look, man, even racist people got their limits. They ain't lynching people at minus 20. He would have been the first, if this story had been true, to be lynched.
Like somebody's waiting out yourself outside your house because they know you're going to come out at 2 o'clock in the morning. Like,
nah.
Who's walking the street at minus 20 in Chicago? Like, I'm from Minneapolis, right? Where it's minus 20, minus 50, right? We don't walk the streets at 2 o'clock in the morning. You just don't do it. It's because at 2 o'clock in the morning, it's 20 degrees colder than it is at noon. Like, people just don't do this.
Did they just happen to be out and it's like, oh, look, there's a black guy we could beat up.
Oh, and we happen to have our MAGA hats on right now.
Yeah. And then,
wait. MAGA hats in Chicago, right? Like, anybody who's ever been to Chicago knows, like, there are a lot of black people in Chicago. You're not walking down the street, even if it's at 2 o'clock in the morning with MAGA hats on.
It just sounds like a badly written script. Like, you ever watch these movies and they've made millions of them and it takes place in like an urban environment, but there's the hero or the star of the show is the one white person. They're like the only white person in the movie. Yeah. Whoever wrote that script wrote this lie for him. Like, you know what I'm saying? It just doesn't make. The more you hear it, the more you're just thinking, who told you to say this? Like, none of this adds up.
I love Shameless, right? The TV show.
Yeah.
But there's one black person in the entire show. Anybody who's ever been to the South Side of Chicago would realize that there should be one white person in the show. Let's just be real.
Right.
Like, all right, enough about Juicy Smollett. This happened last week, so there's been well, actually, let's do this first. Myles Garrett appealed his suspension for hitting Mason Rudolph in the head with a helmet. Mm-hmm. And in the appeal, Myles Rudolph says that Mason Rudolph called him a racial name.
Myles Garrett.
Myles Garrett,
Mason
thank you. Mason Rudolph called Myles Garrett a racist name. I don't know why, but like when I saw this first happen, That was my first thought.
That was me too.
Like, that was my exact
Oddly,
first
yeah.
thought. I was like, Rudolph just called him the N-word. Like, I don't even know why, but like, because people, like, you want to set a brother off. That's like,
Yeah.
he's not going to get, like,
Yeah.
Football players have been in fights with other football players, right?
Yeah.
Like, and I didn't say anything, but I was like, that was my first thought, right?
Right.
And you posted last week, Mason Rudolph's that guy that we all know that starts something, then runs to the boss and complains that somebody's yelling at him or something like that. This dude. My problem is this. Rudolph gets off. He gets a $35,000 fine, which is nothing because it's going to cost Garrett $1.6 million to be suspended just for the rest of this season.
Yeah.
Rudolph, it's one of those things where you should just shut up again.
Yeah.
Because he comes out today and he denies the allegation that he said anything racial. I got it. Great. Maybe you didn't say anything racial. But what you should not have said is what you said next was, I didn't start this. I wasn't the initiator. Bruh, we have all seen the video 900 times. You kicked the man in his groin. You tried to rip his helmet off. It's like tug of war, right?
Right.
Like if you're tugging on something and then all of a sudden the other person gets the other hand and they pull you across the line and into the mud pit,
Right.
you lose, right?
Right.
He lost.
Right.
And he should just take the L and shut up.
Right.
Like to say now that I wasn't the initiator, I feel like the NFL now has to go back and be like, whoa, you know what? Maybe $35,000. You need $200,000 fine, so you learn to shut up.
See, that's what bothered I think everybody at first is he's the one who on video. We all watched the video and we're like, well, he started this. Now, granted, Garrett took it so far that once you go so far, you almost don't even care what how it got started.
Right,
this person just took it too far, which he did. And I felt like the fine and the suspension and everything for Garrett, because what he did is unacceptable. He legit could have killed that man.
Right.
And regardless of what Rudolph would have said, that's just too far. So I think that the suspension and everything on that end was fine. The other two players caught up in the heat of the moment, 1 and 2 or 3 game suspensions, whatever, plus the fines for the team. Everything else I felt like, okay, it's sports, whatever. Fine. Those are good. I did just feel like, Rudolph should have got a little more suspension. He should have got a little more of a penalty than what he did, because regardless of if he started it or not, he was involved at that point. Right. If it wasn't two people in between him and Garrett.
He ran after Garrett when Garrett got up.
And that's what I'm saying.
What initiated the helmet swing. Right. Because he went after Garrett.
Had those two guys not been in the way, number one, I don't think Rudolph is tough enough to just charge at a guy with no helmet on like that. But had he done, he could possibly be dead, because Garrett would have got a real clean knock across the head. You know what I mean? But
right.
I don't think that him just getting away with a $35,000 fine is good enough. He definitely should be penalized more. And since he wasn't, you're in a point now where it's just like, basically, I don't want to say it was as big as him getting away with murder, but bro, like, you just made it out of the store with like your waistband full of steaks. Like, you just stole a bunch of stuff, bro. Like, shut up, just keep walking. You know what I mean? Let it go here. The winner in this right now is Rudolph. Like, so be quiet. You know what I mean? Like, that's where he needs.
But he does. And somebody, Mike Tomlin needs to pull him aside and be like, shut up.
Somebody does.
The big thing that kind of happened in sports this week, I have to start out by saying this. I can't stand Stephen A. Smith. I think that he makes money perpetuating black stereotypes, and it drives me insane. And I'm not jealous of his money. I feel like when we as black people get on TV and you start acting like they say we act, and by they, I mean white people. Yeah. You perpetuate that, and you make the rest of us look like that. Okay. Because they can say, oh, see, that's how they act. Right. That's because that guy's on TV. That's how they act. Yeah. And my problem with...
It's not only white people that say that, by the way.
Okay. Well, fair enough.
A lot of races.
Yeah. Right. Fair enough.
Have stereotypes about every race.
Fair enough.
And it's not all white people either.
No, 100%. I was about to clarify that.
Quan is the white voice of reason.
All those shows have all split up.
Yeah.
So
they can't. They're all huge stars in their own right, saying blasphemous stuff.
Right.
It doesn't make any sense.
No. And as much as I dislike Stephen A. Smith, like if he talked calmly like a normal person, like we're doing right now, and didn't do all that hollering and like loudmouth coon stuff, like I wouldn't have a problem with it. I actually had ESPN on the satellite on my way in here, and he was vehemently defending himself.
Yeah.
He even made comparisons to Martin Luther King and Al Sharpton and Jesse Jackson about how they don't speak for every black person. Not every black person likes them, which is 100% true. But then he tried to say, oh, I'm not in there, I'm not trying to compare myself to them, but you just compared yourself to them.
Yeah.
As much as I dislike Stephen A. Smith, I think he's right on Colin Kaepernick. I have defended Colin Kaepernick to the core. Yeah. Like, I 100% agree with his ability and his right to take a knee. Mm-hmm. I appreciated the fact that he brought light to something on a much bigger stage than it was being represented. He made other people, other races stand up and be like, you know what? He's right. That shouldn't happen.
Right.
Like, I don't know if it made a difference in that people stopped doing it.
Yeah.
Because I mean, from what we see, like, it seems like the same stuff's going on. Carrie saying that Cap should be out of the NFL forever, which surprised me because she's a military person, and most military people I know understand that they fight for the right for Cap to have his rights to do that.
Yeah. Colin
Kaepernick, we talked about this a few shows back about, because people kept saying, well, does Cap bring Cap back? And I said, does he actually want to be in the league?
Yeah.
My answer is now he doesn't want to be. I don't think he wants to be in the league at all. And here's a couple things. He wouldn't sign a waiver to do this practice, right?
Mm-hmm.
But then he went and did a tryout anyway without a waiver.
Mm-hmm.
So what does that prove? What did you accomplish there?
The whole situation, none of it, nobody's being as transparent as they need to be, and everyone is trying to push their own narrative, which is part of the issue. My biggest pet peeve with this, backing up a little bit, I think I agree with some of the stuff you said about Stephen A. Smith. I believe he's entitled to be who he is. One of my favorite quote in all of life is, "It's allowed." He's allowed to do exactly what he's doing. Love it or hate it, because there's somebody else who's doing the exact opposite of what he's doing, right? Everything he said about Colin Kaepernick was, in essence, a fact, right? I mean, it was very true. And from one perspective, it very well seems like Cap don't really want to play.
No.
I've had plenty of instances where I'm just so sick of it because I just keep thinking, I don't think there are certain times when I'm like, he should be playing. He definitely has the athletic ability to be playing. But on the other hand, at this stage in the game, especially after this weekend, I'm starting to lean that way of, I'm not sure he actually wants to play. My other thing is, I don't know if him playing solves anything at this point.
It doesn't.
It seems so much better for him to just move on to the next step.
As Jay-Z said, we're beyond kneeling.
We're beyond it now, right?
So he created the movement.
He did.
Like,
and that's great.
I mean, if you look around, there's top 6 quarterbacks, all ethnic, all black.
Right.
So like,
but here's my issue. So when Cap took a knee, everybody began to take a side. Either you're on the side of the NFL or you're on the side of Cap, right?
Right.
So everybody took a side. So all the people on the side of Cap have all come out, oh, the NFL is racist. We hate the NFL. They're not being transparent. And a lot of those statements are true. Everything negative that you could possibly think of about the NFL in some way, shape, or form, you're probably right. And I'm not going to argue with you. I'm just, yep, you're probably right. With that being said, why do I want, how am I going to feel when Cap gets signed to a team? If tomorrow, let's just say, I don't know, the Miami Dolphins decide, you know what, we're signing Cap, $5 million, 3-year deal, whatever it is, right? Just some deal to get him in the game because they suck, right? Cap is playing. Are you happy now? Are we now back to watching the NFL? Is all of this over? Do we feel now? I mean, because we hate this NFL. We've treated the NFL like a slave master, right? We all hate it. All black people hate the NFL now, right? Most of us hate it. It's so much got to do with, systematic racism in America. It's a symbol of this and this and that, and we all hate it, and it is just gross, right? I can beat this dead horse to death with how much we hate the NFL. So now if they sign Cap tomorrow, oh, we now supporting? All of a sudden, Jay-Z ain't a coon no more? Like, he's the man? Like what does it solve?
Jerry Jones didn't say the things he said. The owner of Jacksonville didn't say the things he said.
So at some point we have to move on. And this, to me, it's slowing whatever progress we make. At this point, after this weekend, what I saw with this, whether the NFL was right, whether the waiver that they wanted him to sign was a little shady, is like, Capside said, it was a shady whatever. I mean, he's still playing his own thing, at least as a contingency, because you can't just show up at a high school and get a workout. That's something you have to go through and set up and do all this stuff. I've heard Max's rebuttal to Stephen A. Smith, on ESPN First Take, which I thought was great. But both of those guys make great points. At the end of the day, though, Cap has now become just a distraction.
Yes.
You understand?
Not just for NFL. He's become a distraction for his own movement.
Right.
He could have made himself bigger than the league.
He could have.
That's the whole thing, is he could have made himself an agent with some of these players. He didn't have to go back and lower himself to the standard of the league. Like Nike backs him by millions.
Right.
So
he
can make whatever marketing
and that's
he
something
wants.
else a lot of people don't understand, which is why it's very hard to pick a side here. Cap can do what he did because he doesn't need NFL money.
Mm-hmm.
He doesn't have to play
Stephen
in the
A. Smith
NFL.
did point out something on his show today, and that is we don't know what the settlement was with the NFL.
Yeah.
Like that's
they
never
said that they paid him $10 million, but
it could have been more. Could have
been more.
$100 million.
Right.
Right. Who knows?
Right. So we don't know. Like he has tons of money.
Yeah.
He, like you said, he doesn't need the NFL.
Right.
Other than to be this smarter now.
Right.
If a month or so ago, you were working getting a union job, remember?
Yeah.
If they had called you at 9 p.m. at night on Wednesday and said, Mr. Huff, we need you to come in we had some, we weren't going to give you an interview, but we've had some people cancel interviews and do some other things. We have an interview tomorrow. It's only available at 7:30 a.m. Where would you have been at 7:30 a.m.?
In that office, baby.
Right? Like
you see,
like they made it tough. I get that. You got to be there on Saturday. They gave you 4 or 5 days notice, but you've been on Instagram and all these other things talking about you ready.
Right.
So that shouldn't have been an issue.
I've had jobs currently right now where they've called me and said, "Hey, you got the job, but first you got to take this drug test."
Right.
When? Within 4 hours.
Right.
You know what I mean? Like, what am I? I'm chopping about the bed, putting my shoes on. Right. You know what I mean? Doesn't matter. You got to do it. Right. I got kids to feed.
Right. So, this is something I got from my stepdad, and he was like, "All you ever got to do is beat them at their own game because then they have no excuses."
Right.
If he'd have went to that workout and just did his thing, they had no excuses. There's 25 teams there. He went out and we know he can show and prove because he did it at the high school.
Right.
And I understand the part about wanting your own receivers, and I think that's a reasonable request.
Yeah,
right?
I thought that was reasonable.
But on the other hand, NFL scouts know who is and who is not a good receiver, right? You know when a ball is thrown and it's the quarterback's fault or the receiver's fault.
Right.
NFL scouts aren't stupid. These guys make a lot of money to decide what guys can actually throw and what guys can catch.
Right.
So, but I understand you wanting your own receivers, but if they wouldn't let you have them, scouts aren't stupid. They know who can't catch.
Right.
If those guys could catch, they'd still be in the league.
They know you're putting the ball on the money. He just couldn't catch the ball.
Right.
They know if he didn't speed up to catch the ball, if he slowed down to miss it. Like, you
want cameras in there and you want to make it a show. We have a phone call? Who is this? Hello, who's this?
This is James.
Hey, James, how you doing?
From high school.
Hey, what's going on, James?
Good. How are you doing?
I'm good, man. What's going on? You got thoughts about Colin Kaepernick?
What's up, James?
Yes, sir. Yeah, what's going on, man?
How you doing?
Hey, I'm all right. I was listening to what you guys are saying about Colin Kaepernick, but you guys are forgetting several key points in your discussion.
Okay.
The NFL wanted to control the narrative about Colin Kaepernick. They didn't want the media to be allowed. It's going to be a closed, workout.
Right.
And the NFL normally does not get involved with these types of workouts when the NFL or when NFL teams want to try to work out a player. NFL, the commissioner stays out of that kind of stuff.
But the reason that the NFL was controlling this narrative is that teams wanted to sign Colin Kaepernick. He would have been signed today if it wasn't for his antics. Teams wanted to sign them, but none of the teams want to go out on their own and be like, hey, we're going to sign Colin Kaepernick. So if the league gets behind it and behind their owners and says we're going to do a group workout, so then it takes the pressure off an individual team. That's why that was done. So yes, they're controlling the narrative, but they're doing it to protect their other investments. And they should protect their investments. They have a lot of money invested in those teams.
Yeah.
If they want to protect their investment like they're so-called doing, they've been protecting their image for the past 3 years that Colin has not been allowed to play in the league. So you guys got to kind of try to look at it from Colin's perspective. This league has been blackballing, or some people say whiteballing him for the past 3 years. And so now they come at him. All right, so you can, on short notice, you can come here on a Saturday, work out. We're not going to allow any media. You're going to have to sign a waiver that has some sketchy,
But the waiver wasn't sketchy. That's the problem, right? And then he went and worked out without the waiver anyway. So there was nothing gained by not signing the waiver except for grandstanding and being a martyr.
So this is my beef to that. Like we all, and that's kind of what I was getting at earlier is everything you just mentioned is 100% correct. The problem now is how do we get past that? If he had went and worked out and then they said, you know what, we're not going to sign him. Well, now where are we? We're still in the same spot we've been in. If he goes and works out and they say, okay, there's a team that's interested and they're going to sign Colin Kaepernick, and then he gets signed to a team. How have we really progressed by him getting a job? It's if he wants the job, he has to do what they want, sketchy or not. He could still have his own private workout an hour later. He could still do his own private workout. The workout that he didn't have to be done on that day at that time. He has the money and the resources to set up his own workout anytime he wants. Nobody funded that workout except him. And he scheduled it at the exact same time. He didn't schedule it an hour before or 2 hours later. He planned that. So again, everything you're saying is right. But there's still there's no
culpability on his part.
Right. There still has to be a point where he has to say, okay, I'm going to do what they want to appease them. And then he actually has a legit argument if something goes wrong.
And then the other thing he did was he came out defiant, right? He came out with the Kunta Kinte shirt, which to me, there's nothing, you are not a slave.
Right.
Like as much as we call NFL owners slave owners, you make, what did he make in his career? Like he made 20 million in his career. Yeah, 100 million, what is it, whatever, some ridiculous number in his career. That's not slave. I understand he was making a point, but that wasn't the place to make the point because you came out defiant. You're going to a job interview with a big FU on your shirt.
Yeah.
You're not going to get hired for that. And then the comments he made afterwards about stop running, they weren't running. They gave you a chance, whether it's a BS chance or not.
Yeah.
They gave you a shot. And if you beat them on your own game, at their game, they have no excuses. None. And now you want to show out because Nike wants to shoot a commercial around this.
Yeah, honestly, everybody was talking about the shirt, and I thought, man, he just probably grabbed that shirt and put it on. I mean, maybe it was strategic,
no,
but I don't see a big correlation with this shirt. And people seem to forget. I understand that Roots is a powerful movie, and shout out to LeVar Burton, who is very underrated in his contributions to African American literacy and other things, but. At the same time, Kunta Kinte is a fictional character. He's not real. Like
Kunta Kinte is 100% real.
It's loosely based on a real character, right. But Kunta Kinte himself is not real.
Okay,
like you know what I mean? Like that's what I'm saying. Like it ain't like the shirt was like Malcolm X fight power, right. Whatever. You know what I mean? So, but
Kunta Kinte is widely observed as slave. He's the slave, right?
We get the message.
He's the defiant slave.
I get the message, but it's just people are overanalyzing something that's very like. In my opinion, just let's argue about something else. You know,
Colin Kaepernick would benefit by working together.
Say that again.
Let's focus on how the NFL and Colin Kaepernick they would benefit each other because this would be a huge financial increase for whichever NFL franchise that would sign him because their merchandise would go up because of his name alone.
That's the 50-50 deal we've talked about before, where you're going to make half your audience mad and half your audience happy. it's not gonna like.
It's a matter of who leaves and who comes.
Right.
Yeah.
You
There's
just
no game.
Right. It's 50-50. You're gonna make half mad, half happy. It's like when half the people burn their Nike shirts and half the world went and bought more. It's nothing is gained or lost on something like that.
It becomes a wash, which leads it to. I mean, we've already proved that the NFL colluded against him. That's why they settled. I mean, a lot of these things are not even speculation anymore. The point is now is does anybody benefit from bringing him in, or is this going to cost us anything?
There were teams like the Miami Dolphins
and
and the Jets that really could have used him. I know that the Patriots wanted him because they needed him on the practice squad because they don't have an answer for Deshaun Watson and Lamar Jackson.
Right.
They don't know how to game plan against that with their current defense.
Right.
They wanted him on the practice squad to be somebody who could be mobile and move around. Like that was put out there as knowledge by the Patriots that they needed somebody like that.
Right.
Now they got to go ask Mike Vick to come out of retirement. Hey, James, thanks for calling in, man. We're going to move on to our next subject. And our subject of the day that everybody wants to talk about, we're going to talk about marijuana.
Reefer.
A little bit of cannabis.
The Mary Jane. Everybody's... So, as we call you our drug dealer, but we say that sarcastically because you actually work at a dispensary here in Las Vegas.
Mm-hmm.
So you know a few things about marijuana and THC and all that good stuff. So I don't even know where to start. There's just so much here. Let's start with what's the difference between CBD and THC?
CBD and THC. CBD is what's going to affect your body. Going to be pain management. Okay. And then THC is going to be the hallucinogen. Can affect the mind.
Okay.
So does THC affect the body at all?
It's kind of what's allowing your brain to regenerate your body.
Okay.
To hit for the CBD.
Okay.
THC is like cerebral. High on your head, low. It's going to hit you in different places in your head.
Okay.
CBD is legal everywhere in the United States. Is that true?
Yeah, it's like the Hemp Act.
Okay.
Makes it where you can go nationwide. You can ship it nationwide. So,
I've also been told that people really need to look at CBD when they buy them because a lot of products say CBD, but they have such a small amount of CBD actually in them that they don't help you in at all. Is that true?
Some of them are just like less than a point percentage of one. So like you can get to like a 18-1, 20-1 differential. It's basically just trying to do the most simplest things for CBD.
Okay.
Yes, Ryan, that is Tom. So there are so many types. Actually, let's talk about your story first. Why did you decide to? Well, we've known each other for 10, 12 years, something like that, a long time.
Long time.
I don't remember you being so into weed when we first met.
No, I was actually into opioids, and it was more hydrocodones, and I had an ex-wife that was going through stage 4 cancer.
Okay.
So she was kind of learning, had cervical cancer all the way up, and then tumors, and so like we went from doctors saying she had 6 months to live to Rick Simpson oil, raw food diet, and CBD 1-to-1 blends that put the cancer in remission after they told us
what do you
had
mean
6 months to live.
When you say 1-to-1, what is that?
1-to-1 is like a THC is 50%, CBD is 50%.
So it's equal amount of THC.
Yeah.
Okay. How's she doing now?
Good. Like she now goes to the gym, runs a couple miles a day.
Wow.
And she was told she had 6 months to live.
Yeah. And also like she's gone through her chemo radiation, losing the hair, doing it their way, the medical way.
Right.
And now, doing it our way, and it worked a lot better.
We're going to talk to somebody else that's gone through this in just a minute. Let's talk about different types of... There's a lot of ways to get THC. right? There's things called shatters, tinctures, sugars, waxes. What are these things?
Just different ingestion. I mean, you can have edibles, tinctures.
Tinctures are drops that go under your tongue.
I was gonna say, like,
right?
yeah, like what is a tincture? Just a drop.
Drop like under your cheek or your tongue.
Okay.
Which it's kind of like it's pretty interesting because like I started doing tinctures right about a year ago, and probably have cut off about 100 pounds.
Wow.
Blood pressure goes down.
Right.
Oh wow.
Bones start popping back into place that haven't been.
Yeah.
You know, it's like people that don't have like medical things like that. It's big because it feels like you're slowly fixing yourself with like, you know, doing 10 years of poker. It's like you have ruptured back, but you don't have health insurance.
Right.
So
yeah.
it's
Exactly.
like,
Yeah.
you got to figure it out.
Right.
And
Right. That's exactly where I was at. Like I try to explain to people, like, as a dealer, especially dealing poker, you sit down and you're always leaning forward, and you have lower back issues.
Your
like
back,
every dealer
your
I
shoulders.
know, lower back, shoulders, wrist. Like I tore my rotator cuff and have no idea how. And every dealer I talk to is just like, yeah, it's probably from dealing, probably just from dealing. And I'm like, I don't know. Like, you know, I go to at the time I was, you know, in the gym 5 days a week, and I just was like, oh, I probably did it in the gym doing something and didn't know it. But I mean, yeah, like just
There's lots of
everyday life,
carpal
wear and
tunnel
tear,
and
yeah,
stuff from
carpal
pitching.
tunnel, yeah.
And there's a lot of jobs like that, right? Where people sit at desks. We now see all these like computer screens that sit up higher, you know, like so they correct your posture when you're sitting at your desk all the time. What is shatter? Like, what is that made out of, and how? Like, what is it?
So shatter is like pulled from the flour. Usually, about an eighth is gonna make like a 0.3 of shatter. They can make shatter, batter, sugars, butter,
and it's
just different forms.
And you just like put that on something and eat it.
No, like so these are things that you microdose.
Okay.
So you have your stick, and you can put it in your like banger rig or heat it up.
Okay.
But it's kind of the best way to elongate your weed. Like if you're a flower smoker, you're gonna last like 2 or 3 more days with wax.
Okay. Got you. All right.
And you add that too, or you do that separately?
I'm gonna do it separately. I mean, these things you can put on your bong. You can put it on top of your flower, kind of burn it like a corn cob effect, where you can have 5 rips on it and you don't have to relight it or anything.
Right.
But it's a stronger dose. You just figure out how to dose yourself.
And I think a lot of people don't understand the dosage, because for years the concept of anybody who smokes weed or does anything marijuana related, they're a pothead. They sit around, they're smoking for, you know, a half hour at a time or whatever it may be, and they're just high and buzzed running around. But from what I found, and even through my own experience, a lot of people are microdosing, taking a couple puffs, and then they're good for a few hours, and they're still functioning like a normal person. Like they're not just high and giggling, and
they're doing it for the trauma, the
Right.
PTSD. There's an older generation that just, with them taking hydrocodone or Oxycontin or opioids, they feel in a fog.
Right.
Like they feel like they're not there. And people lose years of their life because of that.
Right.
Because, you know, they're just trying to dose out and not feel the pain.
Right.
Well, marijuana is kind of different because you're present and actually you're stimulating your mind.
So
like you're growing.
Right.
a few years ago, I was on the fence about weed. I
Mhm.
really was. Like, I was never much of a smoker when I was younger. I'd probably smoked weed 6-7 times in my life. But I have to take pills to sleep. I have a sleeping disorder.
Mhm.
And somebody told me to try indica to help sleep.
Mhm.
Best sleep I ever had when I started smoking this stuff. I was like, this is amazing. But I was still on the fence about it, to be honest with you. And Dave, are you on the phone?
I am on the phone,
I
apologize. There's a train in the background, and I'm walking away from it.
So, my friend Dave here. Dave, was it pancreatic cancer?
Stage 4 pancreatic cancer, October of 17.
Of what year?
October of 2017.
Okay. And so we're at now 2000. They told Dave, literally the doctor said, go home and die. He told you you had no shot of living, right?
Correct. They told me I had about 2, worst case, 12, best case weeks to live.
That's crazy.
That to get my affairs in order.
So it's been 25 months. How do you feel today?
Brother, okay, so at my low point, I was 118 pounds and quite sick, and right now I'm overlooking Elliott Bay in Seattle. I'm about 140 pounds. I'm healthy as an ox. I'm free of all cancer, and I'm alive.
Wow.
And how did this happen for you?
So when I got diagnosed, I was desperate. Megan, my wife, did a lot of research, and I started with a massive detox called the Gerson diet, and that's Gerson. But the key component was Rick Simpson oil, or RSO, which is a distillate of THC. So it's marijuana, but in an oil form.
Yeah.
Highly concentrated. And what you do with RSO, if you have not taken any radiation or chemo, it's going to take about 60 grams. So a gram a day over 60 days, and that should do it.
Real quick, 1 second. Tom, how much does a gram cost, roughly?
A gram for the flower is like 15.
What does a gram of the RSO cost, Dave?
So a gram of RSO depends on where you are, and this is part of the politics of medicine. Where I get it in Washington, it's $10 a gram.
Wow.
In Vegas, it was almost $100 a gram.
Okay.
Wow. So you had to take 60 doses at $10. So $600.
$600, yes.
All right. And if you had to go through chemo, we're talking $50,000, $60,000, $100,000.
Oh, way more than that, brother. You're looking at least a $500,000 bill in terms of, they have to put the port in, and then you have to be monitored. There's a series of blood tests and counts all the time.
That's saying it works the first time through.
I mean, and you talking about the politics of even doctors will admit that chemo doesn't even work all the time. I mean, even if you say like, look, there's a 50-50 shot with chemo and a 50-50 shot with Rick Simpson oil, right? I mean, $600 is, I mean, to live. You're talking about your life. Like the doctor basically was like, bro, you dead. You lucky to not die right now, right? And then you go and Rick Simpson oil, $600 of it, and you're still here 2 years later.
But you still use the Rick Simpson oil. Is that correct now, even? Or are you done with it?
Okay, so I'm done with it.
Okay.
I'm done with it. I'm free of everything. Now, I don't have a problem with it. I actually enjoy it now. So if you use an indica base, it can help you sleep. It keeps seizures at bay. And so I will go through periods where I will still use it, mostly to make sure that the cancer never takes a foothold again. And I just keep it clean like that. I did change my diet also. So I went to a plant-based diet, a whole food plant-based diet.
Right. Okay.
And the key thing, though, also, too, is quality of life. Even if you're going to die at the end of it, even if you're in that 50%, let's say we said it was 50-50 and you're not going to live.
Right.
The quality of life on RSO is drastically different than the quality of life on chemo. You don't lose your hair. You don't get nauseous. You don't get really, really sick like you do. You don't look like skeletal.
Right.
You actually can go out and travel. It's pain management. You can sleep. And for most people, it becomes a spiritual journey of healing. I'm not advocating any specific thought. I'm just saying it's an internal journey of healing, and it's just fantastic.
Wow.
So like when Dave was doing this, he was high all the time, but it was like
all the time.
But it wasn't that high where you weren't functioning. Like you were very functional. I mean, we had business meetings together, and you were very aware and astute, and were able to answer questions that, like immediately when people would ask like hard questions, he was able to just formulate an answer. So it wasn't like it messed with your mind or any of that stuff, right? Like, and maybe it gave you a high.
Like I'm copying a nod. Correct.
Yeah.
And the way you ingest it too, to be clear, it's not that you take a gram at a shot. You ingest a gram over your waking days. So what is that, 12 to 14 hours?
Right.
Mm-hmm.
So you ingest that gram, the grain of rice, like you put a little grain of rice size drop of that oil, and you ingest it sublingually. So you just put it under your tongue and you let it go there. So if you're having massive pain and you power a whole gram, you're going to get pretty faded and have a really good high if you're into that sort of thing. But if you're just taking it sublingually as it's supposed to, a grain of rice at a time, steadily throughout the day, it's like maintaining a mellow buzz throughout the day without getting too high.
See, so like when Dave started getting better and I'm watching his progress as he's getting better, like I honestly felt like I should be taking more weed because I feel like it's a preventative measure now in my life, right?
Yeah.
I'm 46 years old. Like I've done some dumb stuff in my life, and I've probably eaten everything bad that's going to cause cancer in the world, right? I've never smoked cigarettes, but I feel like when I watch people that I've known get sick like this and then go through this process, I have a friend that plays poker at the Bellagio every day. His wife was just taking chemo and she was so nauseated. Same thing. She lost a ton of weight.
Yeah.
And he was desperate. He didn't believe in marijuana, but he had to do something because he couldn't see his wife like this.
Right.
And he couldn't see her come home from chemo and throw up for 3 or 4 hours.
Yeah.
So she'd come home from chemo. She'd light up a joint or take a few hits from a vape. She would fall asleep. She'd wake up. She wouldn't be nauseous anymore. You know, she could get through her day, even though she still had, the residual issues of the chemo. She was able to cope for the rest of the day. She wasn't in bed all day. She could get up and walk around the house, watch TV, do dishes, take out whatever she wanted to do. Just those basic day-to-day things that we do in life that we just don't think about till they have to be done. But when you can't do them because you're so physically sick from things like chemotherapy,
right?
It's amazing how much of your life you miss.
It's amazing that there's if there's anything we should be outraged about, this is it. Because a lot of us know somebody personally who's died from cancer. Right. We have people like this who his story is literally the doctor was like, "Hey, there's nothing we're going to do.
Go home and they literally told him go home and die."
Right. And then he does this, and then you have people who are still just saying, "Nah, this stuff doesn't work." We're not talking about 1 or 2 isolated incidents. There are hundreds and hundreds, probably thousands of stories of people who somebody was having seizures. Then they take this form of THC or CBD, and now they no longer have seizures. People who were in pain and couldn't function, and now they take this. And it's not just they're sitting around smoking weed all day, not getting anything accomplished. This is just something you can.
It's a functional life.
Yeah, it's a functional
thing. It's like an inhaler.
Right.
You're talking about something.
I was in France, and I got a kidney stone. I didn't know what it was, what it was until I got back to the United States. I had a 7-millimeter kidney stone. I'd have 3 surgeries. When I got back here. In fact, we were supposed to start this show 6 months earlier than we did, but I had to go through all these surgeries, so we couldn't start the show.
Right.
And I didn't want to go to a doctor in a foreign country because I had a friend go to the doctor in the Bahamas, and they botched his operation. So, I didn't know what was wrong, but I knew I was in severe pain.
Yeah.
I had my vape pen with me, and the only way I could walk throughout the day and sleep at night was to hit this pen. And it would just relax all of my body. That it's almost like I couldn't feel pain because my body was so relaxed and so numb. It was an amazing feeling. Did you have those type of feelings too, Dave, when you were taking?
Absolutely. I got it. So mindset became very important, and it contributed to an overwhelming sense of well-being in the mind. Like just everything was going to be okay. So if mindset contributes to the elimination of disease, then it helps your mindset to relax and accept that everything is going to be okay. And when you eliminate the tension and you're just relaxed and into the healing, it comes that way. Now, this plant wants to propagate, very easy to propagate. And I am and I hope I'm not getting too political for you, I'm of the belief that it's being squashed because of the money. But now as they're realizing they can make money with it, or that white people can make money with it, they are starting to look into this.
Man, preach, man. I'm glad you said it and not me. Preach.
Yeah. It's not going to be okay.
Yesterday, the House committee approved a bill. They want to decriminalize marijuana. The House committee, which is mainly ran by Democrats, it's going to get through one branch Congress, but Mitch McConnell has already said that this is not getting through his branch, because this Kentucky guy is speaking for everybody in the world right now, and I think things like this are going to cost people elections, right? Because I think the rest of the world, especially this millennial generation, are like, wait a minute, drugs aren't bad. We do this all the time, and
they're going to decide to vote finally,
right? And I feel like. I like Joe Biden as the vice president. I thought he was a funny guy. All those memes about him were funny.
Yeah.
He was here in Vegas on Sunday night. They had a little Democrat thing, and they had all the Democratic candidates here. And Joe Biden said something. Steve has this theory that the iPhone came out in 2011, and if they've been in or 2008, and if they've been in office since before 2008, we should elect them out. Yeah. And this is why.
Yeah.
And I'm not.
Correct.
This is not meant to be. I'm not trying to say yes or no to Biden. You vote however you feel you need to vote. But Joe Biden said the other night that he is against marijuana because it's a gateway drug, which is the most ridiculous thing I've ever heard. Alcohol.
He's just going to keep it a Schedule 1.
Right.
Well,
that's great.
The thing is even that in essence is the issue that I have and why I made that point, because that's such a like 1980, 1990s way of thinking.
Right.
It's the Ronald
Reagan war on drugs.
Reagan war on drugs.
And the only thing the war on drugs did was put black people in prison.
Right. Yeah. So it's what are we actually accomplishing here? Like if the goal is to build a house and you're doing something, and it's like you got this one wall up, and then you're putting nails in the studs, and then you just keep putting more nails in the same studs. At some point, it's like, yeah, you're working, you're being busy, but you're not doing anything to help this house get built any faster.
Right.
Or better. Or you're not making any improvements. You're just over there doing busy stuff. And that's what a lot of these statements and ideas that they have. It's not about people just smoking weed just to get high. I mean, you're talking about people who are contributing members of society are in pain and dying simply because you don't understand how this drug works and you don't want to do the research about it.
That's the problem is, right? It's not even that you don't understand. You won't try and find out. You won't look for it. You won't see if there's a real answer for this.
Or acknowledge the voice.
Right.
It's voted on at a state level. Acknowledge the voice.
You said you were taking opiates, Tom. Do you feel like you were addicted to them?
In the time and the build-up, yeah, I was addicted to them because it's 4 or 5 a day.
Wow.
Do you think that
3 Red Bulls, it was destroyed?
Yeah, yeah.
Because you've lost a lot of weight. Like, I mean, over the last year and a half, 2 years, you've probably lost about 50 pounds.
Close to 100 now.
Oh wow! I didn't realize there was that much. Wow. Do you feel like marijuana helped you kick that addiction of opioids? Because opioids, we know, and meth are the biggest addiction in this country right now.
Right.
They're arresting doctors and pharmaceutical people because they found out that they were having these guys prescribe opioids under the table and getting kickbacks and all that kind of stuff.
Right.
Do you feel that marijuana helped you kick that addiction?
I feel like it had me wake up because, like, I lost years of my life. Like, years of my life went into a fog where I don't remember anything.
Mm-hmm.
And, like, I did a lot of hard work where it was 12, 16-hour days, but I don't remember any of it. And finally getting on and switching over, it's like, oh, you wake up, you readjust your life, you reevaluate.
Yeah.
Dave, how has your life changed? Other than being healthy now, how do you feel like your life has changed?
Well, prior to the transformation, I was smoking 3 packs of cigarettes a day. I was in the casino business and drinking 4 of those big oil cans of Red Bull a day, and I was always just consumed with work. And the bout with cancer and then the foray into the THC therapy really expanded my mind into like a more of a community spirit. Like, I see people now. I don't just see them as objects. It actually created within me a spirit of community. And I think that is the unintended benefit that people don't talk about, and I think there's a reason for that, because you can't really patent this drug and you can't really trademark too much of it. Like the Sacketts, the ones who came up with the opioid crisis, they're trying to shield $12 billion. Like, they're exempt from the RICO laws and all that. But us on this side, with the natural healing properties of the earth, we don't get those same protections. And I think it's because this drug, or actually this medicine, THC, I hate to call it a drug, but that's how the government classifies it. This allows people to come together and it makes them mellow. And what the government would say are pacifists, peaceful. And they don't really want that, because we get harder to control when we're like, relax.
Yeah.
And so I think it becomes a control issue. Yeah, I think it does.
But
my personal life is improved incredibly. I don't take any medications. I don't take aspirin. I don't take anything. I don't need it.
So, I don't make everybody that's ever watched the show knows that I have bipolar. And the unfortunate thing about bipolar is that it can be hereditary, so it can be passed on to your kids. Mm-hmm. And I have 2 daughters that have severe anxiety. Like, they just, and they've been Adderall and this drug and that drug, Ritalin, whatever. You know what works for them? Edibles, smoking weed, hitting a vape pen once it like
it's a centering effect.
Yeah. My daughter Boo, like it's funny because she's probably gonna comment on here and yell at me for talking about her, but that's all right. She'll get over it. Like when she has these moments, like I used to have drugs for my anxiety. I'd be like, here, take one of these. And she never liked the way that it made her feel. Yes, it killed the anxiety, but it made her feel like she wasn't her.
Because it's a blanket drug.
Right.
They can't just target one thing.
Right.
So it kind of kills your, like my little brother explained it really well. He's like, I feel like a zombie when I take it.
Yeah.
Like, yeah, you got my attention, but you don't have any of my emotions. You know,
right.
Right.
And that's how now she can hit a little vape pen or eat a little edible or smoke just, a couple hits off a blunt. And she's like, chill.
Yeah.
But she's chill. And she's not like that. She used to take the pills and then just go sit in her room.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And just like be gone somewhere. Like she almost didn't exist within the family, in my opinion. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But now I like the way you said that, Dave. Like she's part of the community. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
She comes out, she cracks jokes, she talks trash. You know what I mean?
Right.
As opposed to going in her room and hiding, she's there in front of people. She's part of the family, because she would do that a lot, where she would just regress and go into her bedroom and play on her phone and not pay us any attention. Now she'll come out and watch a movie, talk trash, stop us from watching the movie because she won't shut up. Like
a lot
she's
of people
part.
learn their creativity.
She'll be present in the moment.
Yeah, very much so. Katie wrote in on the Facebook page. She says the only thing weed is a gateway to is In-N-Out. That's In-N-Out, White Castle, Roberto's. Yes, all of those things.
The stigmatism of munchies.
Yes.
Yeah.
Well, there's a lot of weed
guys,
that's anti for diet depressant. Like there's just certain strands of weed that are straight diet depressant.
I need that.
Curve your appetite.
We'll talk about that.
It's not even close.
I need that.
It's like a
for real.
stigmatism
I've
that goes
stumbled on a few of those because I was expecting to get hungry and was like, what is
And then you
happening?
played video games for 4 hours instead. Yeah.
You're such a. But those
Sat
video
there
games will
watching
lead to
TV, like-
violence.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly.
You know what's funny is like, and I'm not 100% sure on this, but I'm like 95% sure because I actually did some research and I couldn't find one. I could not find a mass shooter that they said smoked weed or was addicted because they like to use the word addicted a lot. Like everybody that I know smokes weed, 90% of them can stop anytime they want to. They just don't want to.
That's why every time like there's a police shooting and they're like, oh, we found marijuana in his system, I was like, that must have been from a week ago, because if he was high right then and there, there's no way he did this.
He would have gave you that gun, I promise.
Exactly.
He would have just handed it over.
So actually, Katie wants to know what kinds of weed are like appetite suppressants and stuff.
Some of these sativas you can take with like Lionol or limonene.
What is that?
Which is like, it's like sniffing lemon zest, like you smell lemon.
Okay.
It's the same. Some of these terpenes are derived from like essential oils, so like mint, lavender. Growing up, if you
do you ingest these or do you just smell them, or
so like it's the smell, and then the smoking of it is gonna cause the certain things to happen.
I was about to ask you this next. Explain what terpenes are.
Terpenes are like what
terpenes.
Yeah, they're gonna be what yields from the plant. Like they're the extract, which is kind of like essential oils. So like if you ever had lavender, mint, frankincense, any of those, they're gonna have those type of terpenes, and they've had essential oils for
forever.
Years,
Right,
50, 60 years.
Yeah.
So like
they gave them to Jesus, frankincense and myrrh.
Exactly. There you go.
Speaking of good time.
What if they really? I always think about this. Like, what if they really were like just dropping off marijuana?
Right.
I'm not saying that they smoked it. You know what I mean? But like it's incense, right? They burned it and let it sit.
Yeah.
You know,
They burned it,
then,
put it in the tent
and Mary,
there,
and Mary was probably in some pain. She did just give birth. I mean, let's
peace for the rest of the time.
Right.
You think like it's all about how we write history sometimes. It's just,
wow.
Because the thing, our perception of a lot of things is why we feel a certain way about it. What we've been taught about marijuana is why most people feel a certain way about marijuana. They've never smoked it, never been around anybody that smoked it, but their whole life they thought it was bad because it's illegal and people told them it was bad. So they never learned anything other than don't smoke that unless you want to do other drugs and be a pothead, and
this is gonna mess with your head,
right? You know,
so you were talking about doctors.
Mm-hmm.
The amount of doctors in this state of Nevada that are pro marijuana is like, I find it staggering because we've always been told it's not good for you, it's illegal, you shouldn't take this. But doctors are like, no, like, I don't have a license to prescribe this for you, but since it's recreational, you might go do this. I have a friend of mine whose son was born with a heart problem at a very young age, and the kid's only like 12 years old, and his mom, you know, kind of took him to the doctor and was kind of trying to get the little scare tactic thing from the doctor about don't do this, don't do, you know, because he's got this heart condition. And the doctor, he made the comment, he goes, yeah, but I'm very Nevada friendly.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And the mom's like, I am too. And he's like, he's like, he's a little young now.
Yeah.
But when he's 19, there might be some things that he might want to do here. Like, Nevada, I give props to Nevada for starting January 1st. Companies are no longer allowed. It is illegal in the state of Nevada, starting January 1st, to test
marijuana
and your drug test for a job. If you are applying for a job, they can ask you to take a drug test, but they cannot test for marijuana.
Yeah. Most places, I think, now are testing for cocaine.
Yeah, opioids.
Methamphetamines, things along that nature. Heroin, you know. So if you're not shooting heroin or smoking crack, you should be able to get a job come January 1st.
Yeah, mine was a 9-panel test, and then it says excludes marijuana.
Yeah.
So now it's the same way on most of them.
Right. Yeah. They just, I think the state just decided financially it just makes sense. If we're going to allow this, we can't have it be illegal for half the people to use it.
Right.
So if more people know that they can access it, then more people will access it, more money for the state, and they get to keep their jobs. So
there's also, I want to give props to Illinois and San Francisco too, because San Francisco decided we have way too many people in jail for petty marijuana charges. They went all the way back to 1979. If you had less than whatever's legally allowed now there, they wiped your record clean.
Oh, sweet.
Illinois goes legal January 5th or something like that. They are going to release something like 70,000 people from prison.
Wow.
Who were in there for minor amounts of drugs. Non-violent. You have to be a non-violent offender.
Yeah.
But we all know somebody, right, who's in jail for having...
He had a joint.
2 roaches.
Yeah.
Can they come out and smoke, though?
Yes.
I just want to know if they can come out and actually partake in what they got to go to jail for.
Right.
You know,
and
no, you still on parole. Like, tell the truth.
Right.
Dave, so is it safe to say that you recommend this as a healing process?
I recommend it for a number of reasons. The first and foremost is for the health benefits of it. The second thing is it's a subversive thing, and I'll explain that. So you were saying that, you know, about gateways to addiction. To me, the gateways to addiction are poverty and trauma, and they affect minority communities more heavily than
we have talked about that on this show
when
several times.
Coming to Vegas, we got to talk more.
He'll be here
about
for the next 6 months.
Man,
we have talked about this on this show many times.
Yes,
correct. And so those are your gateways, and like you were saying, small marijuana offenses were used to keep people from voting.
Right.
That's how they kept down the vote. And so I encourage the use of it as an act of subversion against the big pharma and against oppressive politics. That I fully endorse it.
We talked last week about this drug Truvada that the United States government put up $50 million to help develop. And this drug now costs $2,000 a month for U.S. citizens.
Yeah.
You go to Australia, you can buy it for $8 a month. But if you live in the United States, it's $2,000 a month. I don't know if marijuana has any, I don't know if there's any studies about whether it helps HIV or helps cure HIV, but we've seen over and over and over again that when it comes to cancer, high blood pressure, things like this, it works. I mean, there's
disease, diabetes,
PTSD.
PTSD is a good one.
That's the biggest thing coming in is veterans and older generation that just cannot sleep, things like that. Like, It solves that problem.
I always found that was funny because everyone I talked to that either I knew a few people who opened a dispensary here or in another state, or people who worked in a dispensary, and part of the conversation always leads to who are your customers,
right?
And PTSD and older people with like physical pain, are like
arthritis,
is like 85 to 90% of the people. Where everyone thinks is, oh, recreational marijuana, let's all go get high, and that's not really what's happening. It's they're being flooded with people.
Right. That's the thing, right?
Who
it's
are
not
in
just
pain,
people who just want to. Obviously, there are people who want to get high,
of course,
right? But there are people who just need relief, and they want that relief. And there are doctors and lawyers and politicians that go into these dispensaries because they can legally buy it.
And here's something else too. A lot of people don't understand, talking about THC and CBD. CBD doesn't get you high.
It doesn't.
Like mentally high. Like you're not hallucinating and sitting there spacing out and having super deep thoughts. It's just something.
It's body recovery.
Right. It just helps your body. It doesn't get you any more high than taking 2 Tylenols.
Here's we were talking about earlier about the NFL and their hypocrisy. The greatest hypocrisy is that they will suspend players for taking marijuana to heal their pain. And football's a violent sport,
right? But
then they will prescribe these guys opioids. Brett Favre talks very openly about his addiction to drugs from when he got hurt. And all of a sudden he could not live without these drugs because he was in so much pain that he was popping 10, 12 opiates a day.
Yeah.
We know that that's got long-term damage to your liver, right?
Now, I just want to say, you talk about liver damage, you talk about the
kidneys,
mental aspect of it. I mean, it's so much
the trauma
to just,
it's
so much that goes into taking all of these drugs. I mean, I say this a million times, you put 100 people in a room for 3 hours, you lock them in there with, unlimited amounts of alcohol, and you come back, like, there's going to be a fight. Like, people are going to be fighting, somebody's knocked out, somebody's telling a stupid story, getting on people's nerves, everybody's annoyed. You lock that same 100 people in a room with nothing but marijuana, and you come back,
they're all telling stupid stories.
And they're all just telling stupid stories, laughing, giggling, they're just happy to be there. They're super hungry because you locked them in there with no food. Like, it's
design a new Burning Man,
right?
They get creative in there.
It's
That's
like
for sure.
they're having like philosophical discussions about the moon and the sun, and it's a no-brainer at some point.
And Dave, your lifestyle was like you were very successful. You were the vice president of a casino at one point, right?
Correct.
So like it's not like you were a guy off the street. You were a very successful individual in life.
I was what they call a C-suite executive. Yes.
Yeah.
Okay.
So like you had a very comfortable living. You had a nice house. You had plenty of money. So it wasn't like you were just looking for drugs. You wanted a way to survive.
Oh, yeah. And if I was looking for drugs, come on, I ran a casino.
That lost and found.
Yeah, you know what I mean? Please. Any casino floor is like a pharmacy. You go, got a headache, and boom, you can get whatever you want.
That's a true story.
The outfit, man.
I remember before they made marijuana legal here, like you guys all work in casinos, you'll know this. Like we used to have to call security and be like, if somebody drops some marijuana, now it's like you just, hey man, bro, you dropped your stuff.
Can you put that back in your bag for me? I'd appreciate it.
Yeah.
That bomb sniffing dog is annoyed of you.
I actually worked with a woman, and this actually tripped me out because the state of Nevada has had medical marijuana a little longer than they've had recreational marijuana. And I didn't know this until this happened to her. People who don't know, like poker dealers put their tips in like fanny packs, like they carry something on it. Well, she had her weed in the fanny pack, and it fell out on the floor while she was working. So she gets suspended. She has to go in front of HR. This is a termination offense,
right?
Like having drugs at work. However, she's got a medical card.
Mm-hmm.
She goes into HR. She says, I'm not a drug user. I need this for my health. And here's my medical card I had to get a doctor's authorization for.
Yeah.
This is for health reasons. They said, please don't drop it on the floor. Have a good day.
Yeah.
Like,
because they know they're losing lawsuits.
Right. The discussion was over.
It's so funny too, because before marijuana was legal, like there were times where, as a dealer, especially in summertime, a lot of us work 2 jobs. You just work super long shifts. And
you can't sleep afterwards because
right.
No, you have a bulging disc. You can't sleep.
I used to always carry, like, even when I'm at work, I would have like No-Dose, You know what I mean? And then I'll also have like some Tylenol or some Advil or something so I could stay up. And I remember, and this was so common until now. I didn't think how crazy it is. There was a time where like I didn't have something, and there was a girl I worked with, and I'm like, hey, I'm out of no-dose. You got anything? And she looks in her bag and she's like, I got some Adderall, I got this, and I got that. Like she's got like 15 drugs. Then half of them, I'm like, whoa, like we could go to jail like right now. What are you doing? Like, you know, and we just at work and she just got it on her. Like that's how common it is in the casino.
It is
for people to have, you know what I mean? Just different drugs.
How many times have you had a player come up to you and be like, hey, who can I get some Adderall from?
Yeah.
Like this happens.
It's always wanting to know where the Adderall dealer is. I'm like, that shit is terrible for you, right?
The doctors would do it to you. When I went to see the doctors before I was getting, he flat out asked me, "What works for you? How many do you need?" Like offering
yes,
pills.
Yeah.
100 at a time.
Yeah,
100 pills, 100 at a time. You know, that was weekly.
To string you out.
Yeah, I mean it's nuts how the crazy part is in most states that is still the norm.
Right.
In most parts of this country, that is the norm.
It's still the norm here in Nevada, but it's becoming less of the norm because people are educating themselves. Doctors aren't educating people. There are a few doctors out there. I don't want to put all doctors in the same thing.
I mean, I grew up in Little Rock and it was meth, so then meth stepped up.
Banging in Little Rock, were you on that show?
I was about 2 blocks away. I had my bed on the floor to not get shot at. Like I knew.
Hey, Dave, we want to thank you for coming out and participating on the show today. Thank you very much.
Thank you for calling. I appreciate it, brother.
Hey, thank you. Tom, thank you for coming out. Again, this is Negro Please. This is our last episode of this season because the holiday seasons, we will be back in January. We don't have a date yet, but we'll put everything on social media. We are starting all of our new social media. It's going to be at The Negro Please, Instagram. We're going to be on YouTube, Twitter, all that stuff. We're still working out the details. But again, thank you guys for coming out today and listening to Negro Please. Again, please feel free to go watch it. Gorilla Cross Network, they're still on there. Quan?
Vegas Hype Media?
Vegas Hype Media.
Vegas Hype Media. All right, so Vegas Hype Media, all the episodes are on there. Thank you guys for listening. This has been Negro Please. I'm your host, Dallas Scott. Steve Huff. I'd like to thank our guests, Tom and Dave, today. And, of course, producer Quan.
We out.